Greetings, Svendsen fans. This is Joey's brother, Jared. It's been a little while since Joey's pushed record and dialogue with our guests, but as my knucklehead brother always works ahead, we still have material to release. In this episode, Joey talks to our friend Matt Johnson on his book that explains how Jesus has been gravely misunderstood, and unfortunately, this misunderstanding is very evident in how many churches disciple, teach, and lead people everywhere but towards the freedom Christ wants us to have. Thanks for listening.
Have you ever done something that was wrong and harmful, but you did it anyway because you knew God would forgive you and everything, and the long run would be okay because that's how God is? Of course you have. I think we all have. But this usually isn't the norm, in my opinion, for someone who has found freedom in a relationship with their maker and a person who's been given insight on a deeper meaning of life. Why? Because in order to arrive at that freedom, we've learned that the God who exists isn't one who gets pissed off of every second we mess up. There's a lot of heaviness for us there with that sort of approach to life. I mean, my gosh, keeping God happy. Doesn't he have more important things to care about? Like maybe he doesn't want us to mess up because it's bad for us, and he loves us and doesn't want bad things to happen to us or to those around us. So here we read about Jesus, and apparently his teachings are for us to master because apparently we're really needed to figure life out for everyone and to be everyone's mini savior. That's a lot of heaviness once again to take on that responsibility to be little saviors of the world. But what if the only thing we were supposed to do with Jesus is receive the hope and forgiveness that he talked about and tell other people how healing that's been for us personally? What if it wasn't about trying harder? Matt Johnson today talks about his book, Getting Jesus Wrong, which is about how people are getting Jesus wrong. All right, wasn't that funny? But what if he was less of a life coach, less of a visionary leader, and primarily once and for all, Savior and hope giver? All right, what's up, Matt? Matt
Yo.
Johnson with us. Good to have you here, and we're talking about well at first I want to can we jump into like a super serious question?
Absolutely.
Do you know how your last name became like a nickname for male private parts?
Oh, well, let me think about this.
It's so weird how common the name Johnson is, but every time I hear it I go kind of middle school and giggle.
I'm not. I don't know. You know, it seems like I should know this, but I don't.
Yeah, you should. That is your name. That is your name.
It is my name. I mean, I should just own it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the etymology of that is. Can you enlighten me?
I don't. I was depending on you for that one. So we'll just stick with your book. You wrote a book. When did you write this book?
This was, when did I write it? That's a long story. It came out in 2017, but
2017, Getting Jesus Wrong. And let's pause real quick. You're not talking about Western civilization, are you? Like Western churches, we have Jesus wrong?
No. It's not that. I think it's really more pointed at me of having things wrong.
I was being trippy.
Did we have it all wrong? Is Jesus really the savior? Yeah.
Do all of our formulas work? All of our black and white and resistance to gray? Like I sent you a little questionnaire to get some feedback about the book because it's a book that I plan on reading in the future. But it's right up my alley, man. I want to quote something that you said to kind of give a little foundation for the discussion and kind of get you to explain this. I think it'll give our listeners a good little snapshot of where you're at in your faith. But you said that you feel like you're in a deconstruction type of phase but kind of roll your eyes at what goes for deconstruction these days. People choosing, in quotations, whether they're in or out on their beliefs is indicative of a very autonomous Western evangelical mindset that is packed full of assumptions. I love how you articulated that. I'd love for you to explain, man.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to make sense of even what that means. I think that there's a form of deconstruction that is helpful and necessary for people. Like if you've been raised up with assumptions, or you feel like your family has passed down a faith to you, or maybe you've had sort of a shallow faith and you have to go back and ask some of the bigger questions. I think there's a form of deconstruction that's helpful and necessary, but it seems a little bit like it's the thing these days, and I, like, on the one hand, I don't want to belittle the process that people feel like they need to go through.
Sure.
And I think that there's plenty, if I just stay sort of in our sandbox that we're familiar with, there's plenty within American evangelicalism that is worth rejecting. Right. And at the same time, it's sort of like the throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing, to where if I'm, certain podcasts or blogs or whatever, or, there's a new evangelical world person, like somebody in a band, or somebody that's like, yeah, I'm done, I'm out, I do kind of roll my eyes a little bit, to where it's like, you can't, I almost feel like you can't just do that, because our faith isn't just assenting to, is that the right word? It's not just like a thought process of like, oh, here are all the truth claims and I believe it, and then one day I decide I don't believe it. I think right. there's an element of mystery. There's an element to the Catholic Church in the little c sense of the word, the universal church, that is sort of beyond our ability to fully comprehend in a truth claim. And our civilization is foundationally has like a Judeo-Christian worldview, so you don't get to just decide I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess, and I mean, I like I said, I love how you articulated this, and I consider myself a person of faith, but I mean, at some point, doesn't someone just get to a place where they don't have it in them? Maybe, like, yeah. take someone that you and I think we both respect and enjoy a lot, as in Dave Bazan. I actually got to see Pedro in Charleston a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it seems like, for me, I definitely was in a season where it was super hard to see someone like Dave Bazan, who was kind of in too much of a hero place in my view. I mean, just because I loved his music so much, I loved the rawness, and honestly, I think I felt a little bit of that irritation, because I was like, not you, like you're a guy that kind of gives creds to Christianity. Like you're someone that's, open and honest and asking tough questions. Like, you're one of us, don't leave, please don't leave, sort of thing. Yeah. And yet it seems like that guy is doing the best he can. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I for sure, I know when I'm saying that kind of stuff, I run the risk of like, I don't know, it sort of like, I don't want to talk down to anybody who maybe is in that place, or like, so I don't want to belittle like the process somebody goes through, and when they're angry or they're disillusioned, or, their heart's kind of broken over it, they just have to leave. I think I understand in part why people come to those places, and I don't want to belittle that, but there is that sort of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing, where I think it's partially how the truth claims are kind of packaged within our culture too, because it's almost like, okay, here are all the things that are true, X, Y, Z, and in our minds we agree to those things, but then as our faith matures or life gets complex or we go through a crisis or whatever, then we say, oh, this doesn't square with what I've been told. But I think the starting point that we often are told is bullshit. You know,
Yep.
and one of them is, I mean, to go to the Bazan thing, and I'm not not going to comment on, like, I don't know what his thought processes are or whatever, and I guess I would want to say, like, as a general, I don't know, just a general take on what I observe with those kinds of conversations is, like, and knowing where Bazan comes from, I just wonder if the kind of fundamentalism we've all been given, it's very black and white, we sort of get this idea that, like, the Bible just sort of came down from heaven, and there's, like, a whole entire worldview given, like, and then when we see that, say Bible translation or the shitty past historically of the church and some of the bad shit that's gone down, and you have sort of a crisis of faith, we've been told, and it's gotten so deep into us that everything's so black and white. Once there's tension, it's almost like we're using the same sorts of tools to say, like, oh, okay, if the Bible is not pristine in the way that we've always been told, and people start thinking about, like, inerrancy or things like that, they're like, oh, okay, well, then I'm out. But yeah, it's just another way. It's another way to use the same type of mindset. Maybe the way to say it is, like, fundamentalism or a fundamentalist mindset dies hard. So when somebody comes to that faith crisis, they're like, oh, well, I was told this was 100% true and this was going to make my life awesome. Well, that's not true, so I'm out. And right. That also seems like sort of a privileged point of view. And that's where I go back to that thing of, like, I don't know if we can just decide we're out based on what we think is right.
See, I've never heard it said like that. That's so interesting.
I mean, dude, like, this is we're 2000.
That's so interesting.
We're going 2,000 years here. Like, do you think people have not debated this shit forever, or that people don't go through times of crisis?
But there's always been people that it didn't jive with. I mean, there's always been people that have turned around, walked away, or resisted what mom and dad said, and all of that. That's so interesting. Like, almost like you don't get to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
I love it. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I don't mean that. That probably, like, I run the risk of that sounding like kind of confrontational. That's not really what I mean. Like, well, you don't get to walk away from this. I don't mean that necessarily, but
I would love to name this episode, "You Don't Get to Walk Away from Jesus, American."
There you go. There you go. Boom.
Oh man.
I don't know. So, yeah. So, like, I get to thinking about, like, it is sort of that privileged point of view. It's like, okay, I have all the facts, and I've thought about the facts, and I've come to a conclusion that this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, I have thought about before that in order to believe, like, you have to put some stock into mystery and take into consideration the finite, like, seeking the infinite and what that even means and what we're even capable of digesting. And so, in my opinion, it's like you're on some shaky ground in believing, and you're also on some shaky ground for not believing. And so when someone that says, well, yeah, I've got the facts now, I can see clearly, it's like, you don't see clearly, just like I don't see clearly. Like, we're kind of in the same boat here. You're deciding not to believe, and I'm deciding to believe, and neither one of us has probably sufficient evidence. If you want to talk evidence and science and all that sort of thing, we're kind of in the same boat. you're not, I'm not stupid and you're smart, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say though too that Christianity sets itself up in a different way than, as far as truth claims go. It's about a historical claim, and maybe that kind of is in there as far as like what people leave behind. If we're and what I mean by historical claim is like, in the time of Caesar Augustus, like Jesus was born into a context,
right?
Like a credible historian like knows, yeah, there was a guy named Jesus that lived and died, right?
Totally.
And so Jesus lived, died, and he resurrected. That's the claim of Christianity, and it's framed in such a way that it's historical. It's historically. So if we all have been told Christianity is the best thing going, and when you sign up, your life is going to be awesome, and you're not going to have trouble, and you're going to have here's the prepackaged worldview and all the answers for life. If people, and I'm using hyperbole, obviously, but like if that's the general gist of what our faith is about and the promise of it, when people hit those times of crisis, then like I was saying earlier, it's like, oh, well, I was told life doesn't line up with that. I'm out. Like I'm going to have,
right.
You know what I mean? And
yeah, totally.
So,
well, and then let's not even, I mean, it's there's so many people living today that were brought up in such abusive Christian households and churches that were just so heavy and condemning and scary. I mean, I'm still working through fear stuff that I haven't even realized up until recently how it comes into play outside of my spiritual life, much less the fear that I had to work through and within spirituality, because everything was fear driven. I'll never forget, like at a some sort of worship service. I mean, here I am, a 10-year-old boy, and some knucklehead got to be a guest teacher for 10 minutes, and he gets up there, and I'm thinking, oh wow, he's never been up there with a microphone and like a children's leader, and basically he takes 5 to 10 minutes of naming different sins that if you're doing, you're going to go to hell unless you repent. And I was like, oh my gosh. And we're talking things like stuff that you wear, stuff that you listen to. I mean, that's the kind of culture that I'm brought up into. And I think you nailed it when you said fundamentalism dies hard, because once you realize, holy cow, like not only is that stuff not true, but it's really wreaked havoc on my health as a person, then, I mean, you can build up some animosity towards the church and say, hell no, I'm out. Like I can't do this, which is just, it's just so frustrating to see, because I think and that seems to be a major point of your book, is that's not what Jesus was about. And you wrote that when we make Christianity about our own improvement and turn Jesus into a life coach, a movement leader, a spiritual checklist giver, or visionary leader, we are driven to two extremes, either pride or despair, which I've always heard that and always liked that. I mean, if you make Jesus your life coach and you figure everything out and become the perfect student, then you're better than everybody and everybody else is falling short, and you get to be prideful. Or you try really hard to model your life after him and you fail over and over and over and are constantly in despair. And you're saying that what we need is hope. And so tell us a little bit more about, like, so, I mean, this sounds like a trippy question, but I'm serious. Like I never wore a WWJD bracelet because I was always too cool for school and didn't want to fall into, that's, I saw it as pretty stupid, but you would say that's not the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I think that we kind of learned growing up, and I know that we have sort of some similarities in background and, denominational affiliation and stuff. I think about 20 years ago, I felt really challenged and there's like one line in a book that I read. It's actually in the book. I don't make a big point about it, but it was like almost just like one small line in a book I was trying to understand, and the guy was basically saying Christianity is not morality, and he was like really emphatic about that. And I was like, I was so confused by that statement, but after years and years of sort of thinking that through, I think it's really true. But that's what we've been told, right? Is that, Jesus is the best game in town, and he has the best plan for your life. And when you sign up to that and you're good, then things will work as they ought to. And so I think there is a sense that we've been told that Christianity is basically morality, but I think another thing that I've come to for myself was that I don't need Jesus to be a good person. I think that's generally true. Like the 10 Commandments is pretty intuitive across all cultures, right? Right. People know they shouldn't be doing that shit. It's not about morality. So if it's not about morality, what is it really about? It's the whole grammar of it. It's like, okay, you get Jesus in your life, now get to work. Oh, Jesus is coming, look busy, and that's the kind of anxiety that people, I think, feel under that. But what if it was actually more about the person of Jesus and what he's done, right? And that we're in him, I mean, you could take years, your whole lifetime to plumb the depths of what it means to be in Christ, like those long rants the Apostle Paul goes through in his epistles at the beginning of his letters. Like, I don't even feel like I've scratched the surface on what that means. But if that's
right. And what's interesting too is, I mean, it sounds like, you're basically talking about what true grace is supposed to look like and how that should be articulated. And there's a lot of people that once you start going there, it's like, whoa, wait a second. This is making me uneasy because now you can just, do whatever the hell you want to do. And it doesn't matter because, Jesus is he's just there to always forgive. And, that's like a license to do evil. And it's just like, once someone has really experienced grace, they don't, the natural byproduct of that is not, ooh, this is awesome. I feel so free and so rejuvenated and so saved by this kind, Savior. Now I get to just go and do whatever I want to do. Like, that's just not, those two notions don't go together. If anything, you're like, I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
And now I just personally want to do things the right way, and I'm so happy that I don't have to, because it's not like I'll get in trouble if I don't. But man, this is great that I get to, and that sounds totally. A little like Mark Driscoll.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like how you can squeeze some behavior out of people with fear, compulsion, and control, right? You can get some results and do some things based on fear, but it's going to grind you into the ground. I think eventually people just get burnt out on that, and again, like, I'll stand by that idea. Like, it leads to pride or despair. If we make our faith about what we're doing for the kingdom, I mean, just use whatever catchphrase you want to use, like kingdom building or growing in sanctification or whatever. If the focus is on what we're doing and who we are and what we're becoming, how is that not going to lead to pride and despair?
Right.
And grace, right. I mean, grace is the only game in town, dude. It's like, if you know that you've messed up big time, and if you've ever had like a really gracious presence in your life, a parent, uncle, older friend or whatever, it doesn't, like you're saying, it doesn't just give you license, like, oh, cool, we get to do whatever we want. Ultimately, I don't, like, I think people do take advantage of that, but like, what's the alternative to that? you know,
Right.
and we don't
Yeah.
like the idea that people will get off scot-free on something, you know. It's like the whole parable of the workers and the wages that they get. You know, the dudes that came at the end of the day get paid the same as somebody who's been working all day. You know, that's grace, but we don't like it because it's not fair. Well, of course
Right.
it's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely been times where I have consciously sinned, you know, and I would probably say this, you know, the best example that I could give in this area is, you know, unfaithfulness to my wife, for instance, with, you know, lust or something like that. And it was under the protection of, well, I know I'll be okay because God loves me. Well, it's not, you know, once you do something like that, that's a little, you know, outside of God's will for you, maybe, then it's not like it's not like you're in trouble, you know, and at the same time, it may not be good for you. And so,
Right.
you know, that's, you think about someone, for instance, that, like, let's just say someone came up to you and said, you know, I just can't stop drinking. It's destroying my family. It's destroying my life. And, you know, I'm just always going to the bottle when I'm down, or just whatever the case is. I mean, you know, it almost shakes me to the core to think that someone would say something along the lines of, you know, well, my gosh, that's, you know, that's outside of God's will for you. You're disappointing God, or God's angry, or God's upset, or any of that stuff. Like, why not? Well, you know that you're forgiven, and God doesn't want this to destroy your family. So, you know, go to AA, do everything you can, and remember that God loves you, is for you. And, you know, that's the whole thing about any of the 10 Commandments. I mean, imagine God's position. Like, it's a crazy notion for me to think of, like, God being, like, offended with whether or not we listen to him. It just seems like God's got bigger fish to fry. Like, it would seem like God's only intent for us is just to have the best life possible. And so that's why he says, don't do these things. Like, don't indulge in these sorts of things, because it's just not good for you. It's going to destroy you. It's going to destroy people around you, because at the end of the day, God's for us.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like he created humanity to be a recipient of love. Why else did he make us? Like, I really believe that. Like, I think that we are an extension of God's love, and I can't even scratch the surface of what that means here. I mean, I think anytime we try to describe God, we kind of sound like an idiot, because it's finite trying to describe the infinite with language that we created, and we're trying to contain God with it, but it's still, I mean, it's like, God's for us, man. So what kind of, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I agree to all that, and also say, you know, for me, I think there was a shift to, you know, when I think about, if I focus on, say, what is happening within a church service specifically, you know.
Yeah.
And I used to have this sort of mindset of, the purpose of the church service is to get somebody equipped to go and kick ass for God, because he's counting on you.
Right.
And I don't believe that anymore. Like, I believe that the church is in the forgiveness business. It's in the business of dispensing forgiveness, where God is the actor. He's the one that's acting on us. Like, some denominations will say, you know, call the church service the divine service, which sounds sort of highfalutin, but it's, the idea is that God is the one serving his people, to remind us again and again and again of his love and what he has done for us. And then we get to figure out in our daily lives how we're going to go and love and serve our neighbor. That's how that goes back to something you were saying earlier, is like, we know that without condition, on account of Jesus and all that he's done, we're fully forgiven of all of our sins, past, present, and future. Now, what do you want to do? Like,
Right.
God gets things done through people. He doesn't just send like miracles down from the sky. If you need to get fed, there's a baker down the street that delivers bread, and he gets things done through people, and we're free. Now we're free to go and love other people like he's loved us,
Right. Now, I that really resonates with me, how you articulated, like we're people that forgive, and we're the whole thing of church services, setting people up to get them skilled in order to take everything that they've learned and go out and kick ass for Jesus. So how do you personally, because it's something I've thought about, I mean, how do you make sense out of what you just said, and then the seemingly urgency of the Great Commission?
The urgency of the Great Commission and kicking ass.
Well, I mean, basically you're saying that it's not about acquiring skills to go and act on God's behalf, but people have taken the Great Commission to be like, okay, we learned all this stuff from Jesus, and now that we've learned it, this is what we've got to go do right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that probably requires some nuance. I guess what I mean as far as like,
I mean, I'm with you.
Yeah, my statements are probably more couched in a particular world that maybe we're familiar with. And I guess I just mean that in the sense of like how you hear the buzzwordy, like kingdom building stuff.
Right.
I think that's like a false idea in the first place, but we receive a kingdom from God. We get to join his kingdom. We're not building anything,
Right.
But
I would say that we do to kind of answer what I just pitched to you, I would say we do the Great Commission by being people that forgive and talk about forgiveness and talk about love.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how we do it.
Yeah, we're just giving it out totally indiscriminately, like it's the proclamation that sins are forgiven, that
Right.
we go out and we say, hey, God's not pissed anymore. Jesus came. It's all good. Like this is amazing news. I mean, the gospel itself, like the meaning of that is news, but we make it about, you hear even the way that people use, and I'm sort of like splitting hairs, but like the way that people use the word gospel, I think is often pretty lopsided. If the gospel means good news, then the good news is not about us. It's news about something that's already happened. It's an event that has already happened. It's about what Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, and the forgiveness of sins. It's not, the gospel is, of course, like the gospel in the sense of the gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but the meaning of that word itself and the proclamation of that is based on news, an event that has happened, not something we're supposed to go do.
Right. Have you we talked about your eye rolling with deconstructing, but I'll use that word as far as like, have you deconstructed any of your thoughts about the conditional nature of receiving God's forgiveness? Like as far as the afterlife, like do you still hold to kind of a traditional, most people are going to hell because they haven't heard? Like where are you kind of at with all of that?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I would
like
say
that answer.
I would say first of all that I'm very much like in a traditional space, like in terms of creedal Christianity. Like Jesus came, lived, died, and resurrected. That I think that is historically true. I believe that. I believe that Jesus is the savior of the world. Like all of the traditional stuff. Afterlife stuff, like like I'll say, I remember there was a lot of talk at some point at Mars Hill too, like the idea of somebody like a Brian McLaren or something like that had said something to the effect of like like, wouldn't it be true if universalism was awesome? Something to that effect. And I remember there just being a big flurry of debate and people being pissed about that statement. And it's like, what's so wrong about that statement?
What do you mean? You mean wouldn't it be awesome if it was true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where people were just like pissed about that. It's like, well, that's not what the Bible teaches. And, we have to, now there's like this big firestorm of debate and stuff, but take it on the, just the surface level of that statement. Wouldn't it be awesome if that were true?
I know. What's wrong with that? I think we should all be hopeful universalists, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, just, man, I hope that it's true.
Yeah. And I think that there's a mystery there where the doctrine of hell's in the Bible, no doubt. Like, there's no question that it's there. And God also talks a lot about through Jesus Christ, he has done everything that's necessary, and that there's a universality to salvation that I'm kind of rooting for, but I think we have to hold it in tension. But I don't want to be quick to, be saying who's in or who's out. I think that at the very least, we're going to be really surprised. If there's a heaven, and I think that there is, we're gonna show up and we're gonna see some dudes in line. We're like, what are you doing here?
Right. Right.
I think that that's true. I'd like to think that's true.
Now, do you still believe in the if we're gonna let's talk Calvinism and tulip? Do you still believe in the T? Like, it would seem like total depravity would be kind of a part of it would coincide with what you're trying to say about what Jesus was about.
Yeah. I wouldn't consider myself a Calvinist. Maybe I did at one time, but I don't think I do now. Do you think the listeners know what the tulip is?
I don't know. I don't know. They can Google it. So let's just stick with the T.
It's such an acronym, which means total depravity, unconditional
grace, right?
No. Look it up. Google tulip. Yeah. I'm having a brain fart right now, but yeah, total depravity. I totally affirm that completely. But what that means is, I think people often take that the wrong way to mean we're absolute shit and we're like worms down to our very core. That's not what it means. What it means is that every aspect of being a human being is broken because of sin. So the physical world is not as it should be. Our minds are not what they ought to be. We don't, because of sin, we don't function the way that God intended, and things are broken, and that he needs to restore that. But that doesn't mean we're as bad as we can be at all times.
Yeah. So, I mean, how would you answer someone if they just said, okay, so what do I do then? Like, so you're saying don't really try?
No. How about be forgiven?
Yeah.
Yeah. Live for a life that is in Christ and forgiven, and
I like that.
Yeah. And that's our calling as well, is to go out and forgive and to give out that forgiveness completely indiscriminately. At the same time, of course, there are things where we need, like, you're going back to what you said earlier about somebody who's maybe ruining their life through addiction or something like that. Obviously we need guardrails to keep ourselves safe sometimes, or we need to impose laws on ourselves. We need to have laws in our government. So I'm not talking about anarchy or something. We need to have those things for there to be some order and to be able to live in the world. But in our relationship to God, it's based on, at the end of the day, it's based on the last word is grace. If you read Paul in Galatians and Romans specifically, he's saying, like, hey, there's something that the law couldn't do, so Jesus had to come. This is about it's about grace at the end of the day, and that all of the things that the law is pointing to is fulfilled in Christ, and we're in Christ. So there's a mystery for you. Like, spend your whole life trying to like live into that,
Yeah. All right. Well, getting Jesus wrong, where can people get it, Matt?
Oh, all of the interweb places. It's on the Amazons. It's published through New Growth Press, on the Key Life imprint. So yeah, you can find it wherever books are sold. And I would say, a lot of these ideas are expressed probably better by Steve Brown and the Key Life crew, so you can check that out. I'm not speaking for them. I've got my own perspective on things, but if you're down with the grace message, that's a great place to go.
Well, it's been awesome, man. I love the perspective, and I'm with you. I think we are as a whole in American Christianity, we are for sure getting Jesus wrong and giving him a headache, man. It's supposed to be heaven. He's supposed to be enjoying himself, and he's just got a headache.
No doubt. Yeah, you got to wonder, like, come on, you jokers. But, decade after decade, era after era, we're all just a bunch of clowns, and
it is true, man. Yeah. I love how you said that. Generation after generation of clowns. We're being born, we're learning a little bit, thinking that we've learned it all, and then we die, and then we get another batch of clowns.
Yeah, that will have another batch of clownish behaviors and issues to deal with.